Arrogance. Reporters froze mid-stroke, pens hovering above notepads.
The audience shifted uneasily, eyes darting between the stern judge and the calm figure standing before her.
Jasmine Crockett didn't blink. She didn't bow.
Her steady gaze met Howell's with the quiet strength of someone who had weathered storms far harsher than this. That unshaken confidence sent a ripple through the silence, an unspoken challenge that made even Howell falter for a split second.
The tension was electric, alive, unbearable.
Everyone knew they were witnessing the start of something bigger than words.
And that was just the beginning.
This wasn't just another heated exchange. What unfolded in that room represented a much deeper struggle. The clash between unchecked power and the unyielding demand for truth. Judge Howell, robed in authority, spoke as though her position placed her above challenge. To many she embodied the arrogance of a system that too often silences those who dare to question it. But across from her stood Jasmine Crockett, a woman shaped not by privilege, but by perseverance. She represented something larger, the voice of ordinary Americans who have felt dismissed, ignored, or talked over by those in power. Every glare, every pause, every word spoken in that moment carried weight beyond those four walls.
It wasn't just Howell versus Crockett. It was arrogance versus dignity, elitism versus authenticity. And as cameras rolled, America was watching. This wasn't just politics anymore.
This was a test of justice, democracy, and the courage to stand firm when others want you silenced. The stage was set for a showdown that would change everything. To understand why this clash struck such a nerve, you have to look at Judge Howell herself. For years, Howell sat perched on the bench with the confidence of someone untouchable, cloaked not only in black robes, but in the aura of absolute authority. In her world, decisions weren't questioned.
They were final.
Her reputation was built on sharp rulings and a no-nonsense demeanor. But beneath that exterior, critics whispered of a deeper flaw: arrogance. She carried herself as if the law were not a tool of justice, but an extension of her will. She dismissed challenges with a wave of her hand, silenced dissent with sharp words, and expected difference without question. To her, those who stood before her were not equals in the pursuit of justice, but subjects before a throne.
And yet that same arrogance blinded her.
She underestimated the resolve of those she faced. She mistook quiet strength for weakness, humility for naivety.
It wasn't the first time Howell tried to impose her dominance.
But this time the stakes were higher.
This time her words would meet a force unlike any she had ever confronted.
Because across from her stood Jasmine Crockett, a woman who knew the law just as well, but wielded it with purpose, not pride. Howell's overconfidence would soon betray her, and the world was about to watch her unravel. Before she ever set foot in that chamber, Jasmine Crockett's journey had already been defined by struggle and grit. She wasn't born into privilege or wrapped in the security of wealth. She carved her path through persistence, long nights of study, and battles no one else saw. Every page of law she mastered, every courtroom she entered was a step against the odds stacked against her.
Jasmine built her reputation not on arrogance, but on service.
She fought for the unheard, defended those who couldn't defend themselves, and carried herself with the kind of humility that only comes from knowing real hardship. To her, the law wasn't a weapon to intimidate. It was a shield for the vulnerable, a sword against injustice.
And people noticed. Colleagues admired her fire. Ordinary citizens found hope in her fearlessness. She didn't just know the law. She embodied the very principles it was meant to protect: fairness, courage, and truth. Which is why when Judge Howell tried to put her in her place, Jasmine didn't shrink back.
She didn't tremble under the weight of the gavel. She stood tall with the calm certainty of someone who had faced worse and refused to bend.
Because Jasmine Crockett's strength wasn't born in that room. It was forged long before. And now it was about to be tested like never before. Which is why when the attack came, she didn't flinch. The room grew heavier with every passing second. Judge Howell leaned back in her chair, her voice sharp and cutting, interrupting Jasmine at every turn. Each objection, each dismissive remark echoed with the arrogance of someone convinced they held all the power. Reporters scribbled frantically, trying to capture every line. Cameras zoomed in on Howell's furrowed brow, her lips curling with disdain. She wasn't just challenging Jasmine's words. She was challenging her very right to stand in that space with authority. But Jasmine didn't rise to the bait. She stayed steady, her tone measured, her composure unbroken. Every attempt Howell made to rattle her only highlighted the contrast between them. Where Howell's voice was dripping with condescension, Jasmine's answers were calm, precise, and immovable. The energy in the chamber shifted. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd. Some smirked quietly at Jasmine's restraint, while others shook their heads at Howell's escalating frustration. Then came the breaking point. Howell leaned forward, striking with words meant to cut deep, a final attempt to put Jasmine in her place. The silence that followed was suffocating. The entire room braced, waiting for Jasmine's response. And that's when it happened. The moment no one expected. The air was frozen, every eye locked on Jasmine, waiting, wondering if she would finally crack under Howell's scorn. But instead, Jasmine leaned forward, her voice calm, clear, and sharp enough to slice through the tension. "Respectfully, Judge, the law does not serve your pride. It serves the people." The words landed like thunder. A collective gasp swept across the room. Pens stopped moving. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, lingering on Howell's stunned expression. Jasmine didn't stop there. With the precision of a surgeon, she dismantled Howell's accusations point by point. Each sentence was a blow, not shouted, but delivered with the quiet confidence of someone who knew the law inside and out. Howell had tried to trap her in condescension, but instead she was being outmaneuvered by brilliance. "The difference between authority and justice," Jasmine continued, her eyes locked on Howell, "is that authority demands obedience, while justice demands truth, and today truth will win." The silence was deafening. Then came the reactions. A few suppressed chuckles, a murmur of disbelief, the faint sound of hands clapping before being quickly silenced. Howell's face tightened, but the damage was already done. The arrogance that had filled the room just moments before was gone, replaced by a raw, uncomfortable awareness. Jasmine Crockett had seized control. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The room itself had shifted, bending toward her words. And in that instant, everyone knew the judge hadn't punished Jasmine. She had exposed herself. But just when it seemed the drama had reached its peak, the aftershocks began. The clash didn't stay confined to that chamber. Within minutes, clips of Jasmine's counterattack flooded social media. Hashtags trended at lightning speed. Hashtag Crockett crushes Howell, hashtag truth overpower, hashtag legal genius on TikTok. The mic drop line replayed over dramatic edits, racking up millions of views. Twitter buzzed with side-by-side memes comparing Howell's scowl to Jasmine's calm defiance. Even late-night hosts couldn't resist replaying the moment with disbelief. For everyday people, it wasn't just entertainment. It was vindication. Messages poured in. Finally, someone stood up to them. "This is why we fight. Crockett for the people." Commentators called it a defining political moment. One of those rare flashes where truth doesn't just survive the storm, it commands it. The nation wasn't just watching a clash. They were watching a movement being born in real time. But the real power of this moment wasn't in the trend. It was in the lesson it left behind. Long after the chamber emptied, the echoes of that moment lingered. Because this was never just about Judge Howell and Jasmine Crockett. It was about something bigger. The eternal struggle between arrogance and dignity, between the abuse of power and the courage to confront it. Jasmine didn't win by shouting louder or by wielding authority. She won by standing firm in truth, by refusing to bend when others tried to silence her. In that quiet strength, she reminded millions watching that real power isn't measured by titles or robes, but by integrity. The lesson was unmistakable. Authority without justice crumbles. But when justice stands its ground, even the mighty stumble. For every person who's ever felt ignored, dismissed, or talked down to, Jasmine's moment was a reminder that dignity can still triumph. That truth, no matter how pressured, will find its voice. And that is why this story doesn't end. How it's more than a viral clip. It's a call to remember who we are as Americans. We don't bow to arrogance. We rise with justice.
So, if this moment moved you, don't just watch it, share it, spread it, subscribe, comment, and join the fight for dignity.
Because stories like this remind us that we are never powerless.
This wasn't just a clash in a courtroom. It was a reminder of America's fight for truth.